All right, we are live. Welcome back, college baseball fans. I am back for the first time in a couple of weeks. The podcast has been ongoing, though, hasn't it? Because Micah and Nick always make sure the pod is going. They joined me today. Micah, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Nick. Clearly, Monty did not listen to our audio format because he wouldn't be talking to us right now if he did. So that's good. I'm glad that at least,
I
one of our
listened
fellow
to a very,
co-hosts didn't listen.
I listened to a very specific section of the podcast. So you got your listen statistic.
What
Um,
was it?
it was. How do you think I get your picks, Nick?
Oh yeah.
If
I didn't
don't
see
get-
that. I didn't see you DM me till like 12 hours later.
Yeah, well, luckily, unlike everyone else, I have the ability to go in and grab your picks because you don't ever change your picks from the show.
Correct.
So
Man of
whereas
steel.
Micah and I reserve the right to change ours, but sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But yeah, so we're gonna get into it. It's good to see Micah. He's back. He had a long trip in Florida and hit Atlanta, and then did you hit anywhere else? Yeah, you came home and then went to Blacksburg, right?
I did.
Yeah.
And Nick, I'll be seeing you. Well, maybe I won't be seeing you tomorrow, but I'll be in your neck of the woods tomorrow.
Are you going to the midweek?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I mean, it's Coastal Carolina. My boy Hayes coming. Shout out to fifth quarters, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Hopefully it'll be a better game than last time. Coastal, I think, won like 18-10 or something. It was, yeah. Hopefully
Something
the
crazy
pitching reinforcements.
Nick Kurtz will probably have 10 RBIs by himself. So I think
we'll see.
I think
We'll
Coastal's got a shot. Or Wake's got a shot.
All right, let me see. Add to stage. There we go. All right, so we're going to start off with our Thursday to Saturday series this week. It was a top 11 matchup between Virginia and North Carolina. Virginia got the job done in an interesting way on Friday night. Saturday was a complete performance from the Hoos, and then Saturday went to North Carolina. I'm going to start with Micah on this. Micah, what were your thoughts here? We can come back to me since I was there, and I can tell you whether you were right or wrong with your thoughts.
I'm voting that we play all Virginia series starting on Thursday, so that way Henry Ford can hit 3 home runs on every Thursday. So that's my first call to Commissioner. I'm drawing a blank on who the new ACC commissioner is, but anyways, call to him to make UVA play only on Thursdays. Series is starting moving forward. But no, I mean, I think for Virginia, starting pitching is still a problem, Monty. So I'm not going to be all super excited about everything. I mean, you got 2 starters on here that didn't last more than 2 innings. But Evan Blanco looked great, which is obviously promising. And at the end of the day, I think the one thing, Monty, that I take away from, and I tweeted it on our page on fifth quarter ACC, I think we just saw 2 regional host teams go blow for blow, and we saw a Virginia team scrap. I mean, Monty, I got really excited. Unfortunately, obviously had my heart broken, and that's big credit to UNC. But when Virginia tied it on Sunday, I was like, oh my goodness, is Virginia really about to do this again? I mean, it was just a scrap back and forth. I was really impressed. I mean, the lineups for both teams really all came through in different ways. And again, Friday was the more complete game. I think when it comes to it, I mean, I was quite impressed with both teams, really. I mean, I don't think there was a whole lot of negativity. Again, you can question the pitching all you want, but if you've watched ACC baseball at all this season, you realize that really no one in the conference can truly pitch on a night in, night out basis, at least in terms of to slow down these offenses that this conference has.
Yeah, it's interesting. Evan Blanco had a great start on Saturday. I asked Coach O'Connor after the game if there's a thought to move him. As good as Cullen McKay can be at times, the consistency is just not there. So they're actually going to reevaluate. They're going to evaluate because they've got the extra day since they did a Thursday to Saturday, and then this week's a Friday to Sunday. But I would not be surprised to see Evan Blanco in that Friday role just to make sure you're keeping the bullpen a little fresher because you can't keep going out there and only pitching 1 or 2 innings on a Friday night. Even if Evan Blanco's going 5 innings, giving up 3 runs on a Friday night, that's not terrible. That's something you can work with. But yeah, the Virginia bullpen though was outstanding on both Thursday and Friday of this series. Blake Barker, who hasn't been super effective all year, he goes 3.1 shutout innings. And then on Saturday or Friday, you've got Owen Cody going the distance in the last 3 innings to take care of business and get the save there. So really, really good stuff from some members of the bullpen as it looks to settle a little bit. But this was a really red hot North Carolina offense coming in. They hit a bunch of home runs against Wake Forest the week before. So, that's good to see. But also the thing I want to circle, obviously Henry Ford's 3 home runs, but Ethan Anderson had a really good weekend for probably his best weekend of the year, going 6 for 14 with 4 extra base hits. And also I asked the SID Scott about Henry getting that NIL deal from Chevrolet, and he also does not know why Charlottesville Chevrolet has not reached out, because as you guys had pointed out, it's a no-brainer. Nick, what are your thoughts on the Virginia Cavaliers?
Like I said, but when Micah and I kind of previewed this last week, this was a series that Virginia really needed to have, especially at home. And they got the job done. I think Micah hit the nail on the head when he said, remember when we were all talking about, or I guess Micah was worried about the Virginia pitching and how it wasn't like last year. I mean, he just made a great point now. There's no pitching right now in the ACC. Like, we are halfway through the season. We are 4 full series in ACC play, some 5, I think. And there isn't a staff that has been very consistent throughout the conference. So I think that's just what it is. And we knew UNC could hit the ball. So Virginia did a really good job of just holding them down for 2 games. And I think Mike is also right when he says, we saw 2 regional hosts go at it, and I didn't really take a whole lot of negativity out of this series. Like, I think I only dropped UNC a couple spots in my top 25 just because other teams won their series. That was really it. Like, if other teams had lost that passed them, I would have kept them at the same spot. But no, I think we saw the top 2 teams probably in the Coastal right now go at it. Now we'll see what happens when Duke plays Chapel Hill, but this was a fun series. Like, keeping track of it, I'm so happy that Thursday was a standalone game. You could really pay attention to it. So that was a lot of fun.
The only thing that stunk about Thursday, right, Monty, was the fact that you got home probably 1:30 in the morning, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So I was complaining about it for a while because it had been a long day for me. And then Henry Ford hit the home run to tie it. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's getting good. And then he hits the go-ahead home run, and you're all of a sudden, it's a spectacle and it's worth everything. You saw this kid hit 3 home runs, first time in 20 odd years. It's happened at the University of Virginia. And so that did end up making it worth it. But yeah, I got home at about 1:00, and then my dogs didn't want to let me go to sleep right away. So I didn't go to bed till about 3 a.m. Friday morning. And then I got back up and went out there for game 2. And it went a little bit better. But yeah, if you're UNC, there's no, I don't think there's any concerns. The biggest thing for me, I mean, I do worry about DeCaro and Boaz. Boaz obviously didn't throw as much this week, but obviously it's going to be really interesting to see around, towards the middle of next month as we get close to the ACC tournament in the postseason, how these 2 freshman arms are going to hold up. But yeah, I do like UNC and how they played. That Vance Honeycutt home run on Saturday, by the way, the only 2 runs on not Saturday, but Friday. I keep making that mistake, but the only 2 in game 2 were 2 Vance Honeycutt solo shots. And the first one was a 454 shot over the batter's eye. And I don't think I've ever seen it. Supposedly it's only the 3rd time it's ever happened. I really got thrown off because Harrison Didewick went back on it like he was going to catch it, which really threw me off because I was like, oh, is it? And then it was over the batter's eye. I'm like, I don't know what he was doing to mess with us, because the ball was nowhere near catchable as it went like 40 feet over his head. But yeah, so Virginia, they're looking pretty good. UNC, nothing to be worried about. They salvage the third game, and now we get into another big series for the Florida State Seminoles and the Boston College Eagles. I don't know. I believe Micah was handling the Twitter for two of the games, where each time BC went ahead, he tried to call for an upset. And one of those times he technically got it right, because game two did end up being an upset. But Micah, what are your thoughts on Boston College?
My thoughts on Boston College is this team is honestly capable of. We talked about dark horse teams, right? I think this could be, if we had to like say mid-season dark horse. I really liked what I saw from them. I know Sunday didn't go super well, but I mean, John West throws, a pretty solid outing. Obviously, it kind of wheels came off for a little while there, and in the later part of that outing. But we saw a team that went blow for blow with Florida State. It just kind of felt like it kind of got out of hand, obviously, a little bit. I mean, Monty, I know 12-4 on Friday screams blowout. If Boston College doesn't just throw the ball away in that, I think it was the fourth or fifth inning when they were up, I don't know if they win that game, but they're definitely not getting almost run ruled. That game really spiraled out of control based off a very simple mistake. It cost them, I think it was 4 or 5 runs in that inning. And it was just, watching it live, it was quite surprising just to kind of see the mistakes that were made. But I mean, Cam Leary continues to prove he's one of the better players. Obviously he didn't have a great offensive weekend. He had a home run in Friday and Saturday, but that was about it. But he's very sound defensively as well. I've really enjoyed watching him kind of develop. And Nick Wang, excuse me, I always say it wrong. Did a fantastic job of kind of just being a consistent bat in the lineup. It's going to be interesting though, because their schedule moving forward is brutal. So it's going to be a step up, and we got their first taste of it. And I had a Florida State fan message me on my CBC page, Monty, and said that Florida State only lost one game because it was cold. And that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I don't like that excuse. But I mean, I will say it was.
Keep in mind that's a fan and not a player making that excuse. So we got.
Oh no, actually, I thought it was actually the player. No, I'm just kidding. His Twitter handle has a player. His profile picture is one of the players, so I just assumed it was a real player. But
I think I counted out Boston College last time I was on, and since then they've obviously swept Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and then they really played, I think, pretty well, because that, like you had just said, in that game one, that 12-4 was a lot closer than it ended up being. The elephant in the room here is there was no Cam Leiter this weekend. I have not heard anything. College sports being what it is, we're not sure, but Jamie Arnold, is he now the front runner for ACC Pitcher of the Year, Nick, or is Chase Burns still in that seat despite getting lit up a little bit by Virginia Tech?
I mean, he was already close when I posed the question a couple of weeks ago. Now I think Arnold has had a really good case thus far since then. So right now I'm leaning towards Arnold a little bit here, but I mean, it was just an impressive outing, really. I'm going to give BC a lot of credit too here. I think we can we all firmly agree right now that BC is making Charlotte, like, they won't finish bottom 2?
I think it's looking pretty safe, considering what the bottom 2 are looking like. Right. I think they're looking pretty safe.
Because like 3 weeks ago,
they're still technically ahead of Wake Forest in the standings, I believe.
I think conference standings are still ahead for sure.
Yeah.
But no, Micah says no.
Guys, do you not look at my graphic today?
Your graphic does not match up with the standings on the it doesn't match up with the standings though.
What standings are you looking at? The ACC.com?
No, Division I baseball.
I don't understand why. They're 6-9.
That's what I'm
6-9
saying.
is worse than 7-8.
Wake is 7-8.
So like I don't understand, like, because I mean I don't know what to tell you, but that's the same amount of games played.
Micah, I just misremembered. Their Division One's top 25 is correct, or top conference standings are correct.
Yeah, like if it's the ACC website, I mean, not that you needed to watch my wonderful mornings with Micah, but I did note that they had the Florida State Boston College game listed twice and no Virginia Tech Wake Forest listed at all for yesterday in their like score sheets. So I don't know what happened there. Nick can obviously go on his rant about what you.
I could go on a tangent about the ACC website, and
but yes, technically Boston College is 6-9 and Wake is 7-8.
My confusion came from Louisville being 6-6. They are ahead on percentage. Yeah, correct. That's where my confusion came. Is Louisville is ahead of Wake Forest, not Boston College. So Division One, their standings are correct. I misremembered and am incorrect, but Mike is there to take care of it. But the reason I mentioned your graphic is I know some of the tiebreakers don't match up with how the standings are tie broken.
Yeah, the only tiebreaker thing that I actually shout out to a good friend of mine that does a lot of these tiebreaker scenarios. So Boston College and Miami are 6-9, right? Well, technically there's no tiebreaker right now that can separate them. So I purely just went off of like which team I think will go has a little bit easier of a case. Like basically who has the best ACC wins so far. So I gave Miami the benefit of the doubt for having wins over Clemson, Virginia, like because like technically it is based off of like the highest rated team in your division because they're separate divisions. I just went who's the highest seeded team that these teams have a winning record against, and by rule, Virginia has obviously a better winning record than Georgia Tech does. So that's just kind of where the
what I just thought was interesting is if you look at the coastal standings, Virginia is tied with Duke, and yet for some reason they're above, even though Duke won the head-to-head series.
So technically, there's a gray area, Monty, that I'm trying to understand because it should be head-to-head, but I also have heard that it goes based off of your coastal division record. And if that's the case, Virginia technically does have a better record against the coastal because they have obviously the 2 wins against Carolina, the win against Miami, the win against Duke, so I don't know. And then obviously they swept Pitt, right? So like you're talking about they've pretty much played every coastal team not named Virginia Tech at this point. So I think that might be why ACC or why they're getting the tiebreaker. I don't know.
Well, props to you for trying to figure that out because it doesn't look like it's particularly easy. Because again, like you said, you'd think it was head to head, but
and what's more insane, Monty, is like really why should we care, right? Like, oh, it's 4-5. Who cares? Well, as we know, if you're the 4 seed, that means you just got to win one game to automatically advance. So it really does matter.
Yep. So which is crazy. Yeah, and I know coaches want it to be more like a regional kind of situation. You'd have 2 regionals. You'd have, I guess, 8 teams make the tournament and have 2 regionals basically, and then have a super regional for the championship game. But that would help prepare teams for the postseason. But instead, we're doing this whatever this pod nonsense is. But anyway, moving along, Georgia Tech and Pittsburgh. This was a big one for Micah and I because it determined which one of us was going to go 7-0 in our pick'em. I went with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Micah went back and forth. If you listen to his morning rant this morning, he spent a couple minutes ranting about how he was going to go Georgia Tech, and then he went Pittsburgh, and he apologized. He had to apologize. They ended up being his team of the day. But before we get to Micah, because I know he's going to want to rant a little bit more, we're going to start with Nick this time. Nick, what are your thoughts on Georgia Tech rebounding after a really tough sweep last week at home to Boston College?
The pitching has probably been the best that it's been all year. I mean, they held every game under 5 runs, which was great. They needed a series win after a brutal sweep. We talk about Georgia Tech pitching for the last 2 years and how bad it's been, and they just don't compare with the lineup, the bats that they have. And This is the best rotation starts that I've seen in the last 2 years for Georgia Tech. They really, I get it's Pitt, but it's an AC series win, and they did a really good job with the rotation this week.
Yeah, and Cam Jones I think that was his first start, or at least definitely his first weekend start. So he was busy this weekend because he obviously normally plays first base for them in the field. So he had a busy weekend and a productive one. But Micah, Georgia Tech, you doubted them, and you're making up for it today. You're wearing the Georgia Tech hat. For those of you that are listening, Micah's got a beautiful Georgia Tech yellow jacket hat. Micah, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think what was most impressive from Georgia Tech, obviously the pitching deserved the tip of the cap, but I really want to shout out Tate McKee. He was phenomenal yesterday, and it was really needed for this Georgia Tech team that's still trying to kind of figure things out. I believe in Aiden Vinatieri, as the Friday guy for Georgia Tech, and I think Cam Jones, like you said, has settled in. I think this is a good spot for him to be. I talked about it when Nick and I recorded on Tuesday, and obviously I was riding high off of, obviously just leaving the ballpark probably an hour after we recorded. But that team showed a lot of grit. We call them the Gritsburg Panthers, right? Georgia Tech out grit the Pitt Panthers, in my opinion. And it just this felt like a series to me that Pitt could not afford to lose. So, gentlemen, I'm about to expose myself in my nerdiness. I decided to figure out what the magic numbers are to clinch a spot like in the ACC tournament. And let's just say Pitt and Notre Dame are in a very, not that obviously it's over, right? They're not eliminated, but my goodness, this might not be a very tight race for whether or not a team gets in at the 13 or 14 to the 12. I mean, Georgia Tech and Boston College, Boston College right now is the 12. And we're talking about a potential NCAA tournament team where, it's the magic number, by the way, is 18. Right now, that's the most amount of wins that Pitt or Notre Dame can get. And we've got teams already in the 10s and 11s that could lock it up in 2 weeks. And it could be even sooner if, Pitt and Notre Dame continue to lose. So it was just overall, impressive to see Georgia Tech just battle. I want to give a huge shout out because I got to see what he can do on Tuesday. Matthew Ellis. This is a player that I'm going to be honest. I knew he transferred in from Indiana, and that's it. That is all I knew about him. I knew the name, and that is it. He had a huge home run in the 9th, a solo shot that kind of gave a little bit of a spark in life to Georgia Tech on Tuesday against Presbyterian. He obviously had 2 home runs this weekend. Over 500 on the weekend. I mean, he obviously there's a offensive catcher in the Coastal Monty that I think might get the midseason All-Star over him. That being said, he's hitting over 300, and he has been a cog in this lineup that's been very consistent. And I think this Georgia Tech lineup too needs to get a little bit more respect because, Trey Younger is obviously a really great bat. Everyone talks about Drew Burris, but they kind of forget about some of these other bats. And I just think I was overall impressed with Georgia Tech. And Monty, I don't know if we're transitioning or what, but I do also want to give my flowers to the other catcher on the other side, Jaden Melendez, who I was impressed when I saw him in person defensively and even a little bit offensively. And I think that he just kind of continues to be just one of the more consistent all-around players in the Pitt lineup, which say what you want about Pitt's lineup, but I enjoyed watching him play this weekend.
Yeah, speaking of Jaden Melendez is really good, really underrated. For those of you that didn't know this, his brother is MJ Melendez of the Kansas City Royals. So he's got some decent DNA there. But I was laughing a little bit when I was doing the stats here because Luke Cantwell went 2 for 6 with 8 walks. So I thought that was interesting. He got on base a lot. But an underrated shortstop, and he's down here on the list, is Jake Kendro. He's quietly put together a really good season. But the shortstop on the other side is doing exactly what a lot of NC State fans expected. Peyton Green went 0 for on the weekend. Not a great weekend for him. He's kind of slowed down a little bit here in conference play after a really good start in non-conference play, which from what I've been told is what he did at NC State a couple of times. So, Nick, you got any concerns about Peyton Green?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, when we were just a little preview of what I was kind of voting for our all-star teams through the mid period of the season. And I looked at shortstops. I was like, oh yeah, Peyton Green, like he was so hot. And then I just realized, wait, he is cooled down quite a bit. So I'm a little nervous for Peyton Green. I like the kid a lot. And I thought Georgia Tech was a great fit for him as soon as he started playing. I mean, hell, he had a home run against State a few weeks ago. I was just like, yeah, he's doing well here. But hopefully he can turn it around. There's a lot of season left, so I think hopefully he can figure it out. I mean, the vibes were so good to start off. I think the vibes were better starting off with Georgia Tech than they ever did at State before running into conference play. But hopefully he turns it around. I would like to see that. But I do want to give a quick shout out to the Georgia Tech fan base. Micah and I interact with a lot of fans. And Georgia Tech is right up there with the top in terms of ACC fan bases. They are the best. Like, they are passionate. They want to talk about football, basketball, baseball, like huge baseball community. You wouldn't know it, but they are. Like, they are rowdy. They just want people to talk about them. So Georgia Tech, shout out to those fans. They're the best. They really are.
I'm not surprised at all that they are a big baseball. I mean, they have a rich history. I know the last couple of years since that 2022 season that was pretty good, but even then they didn't really have the pitching, but they had that lineup was unbelievable. Shout out to Micah and the Atlanta skyline. Obviously, that's one of the best views you can see on TV in the ACC. The backdrop there. I did realize, Micah, you did take a shot at UVA when we talked about it. And I will say UVA is not as bad as I thought, because initially I agreed with you, but when I was at the games this weekend, you've actually got a pretty good shot of the Blue Ridge Mountains in the background.
Yeah, if you're up in the press box, Monty,
that might be the difference. I might need to go down and see if it's the
same.
Some
of us aren't as spoiled as you know.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, while it was also freezing and I was in the warm press box. But anyway, moving along.
And real quick, the Georgia Tech baseball Twitter page retweeted Micah for those.
Yeah, Georgia Tech baseball retweeted us, and the main athletic account quote tweeted us. So Georgia Tech was spoiling me. It was actually cool, Monty. Some random employee for Georgia Tech came up and was like, "Are you fifth quarter ACC?" I'm like, "Wow. I am a celebrity now." So my ego is.
At least they didn't mistake you for somebody else this time.
Yeah, I'm not Steven Schock, by the way. Shout out to this somewhat talking pig. Shout out to CJ Funk's dad for that.
Yeah. So yeah, Georgia Tech. We big fans. I want to get down there to Atlanta one time. That's the first thing I always notice when I'm on a broadcast watching the Georgia Tech games is when you get a shot of that backdrop. It's just so awesome. So glad you pointed that out, because sometimes when I'm not thinking about it, it's nice to think about. So anyway, moving along to Clemson, which they did sweep, but it was a little bit more of an adventure than anyone ever expected. And Notre Dame looks to be a little bit of a problem at home. They took 2 out of 3 from Miami a couple of weeks ago at home. They gave Clemson everything Clemson could handle and more, and ultimately was in position to win all 3 of these games. And ultimately lost all 3. They got some pitching, which again doesn't happen for them, and they still couldn't quite convert. But Cam Canarella, Jimmy Obertop, Jacob Hinderleiter. Hinderleiter's been a first baseman most of the year. I think he played shortstop a little bit this weekend. So a lot to talk about here. Aiden Kanak took a no-hitter on Sunday, and I think they were 7 no-hit innings, and those 3 hits and the 1 earned run came in that 7th inning. So, Nick, any concerns about Clemson, or is this just, they got the job done and we won't remember this at all because it wasn't a big obstacle?
Nah, they got the job done. I think we talked about it weeks ago that this Notre Dame lineup is really not that bad. Like they can hit the ball if they can get a hold of it. But we knew the pitching was going to be a problem, and it just sort of showed up this series again. So I'm not worried about Clemson. You swept a road series. Like I don't care what the score was. You won 3 games out of 3. So yeah, I'm not really concerned at all. We knew Notre Dame could hit. We knew that they will give their best to anybody. They did to State. They did to Miami. Yeah, I'm not really too worried about Clemson sweeping Notre Dame on the road.
I do want to point out before we move to Micah is some of the issues Clemson have had has been some of the starting pitching, but they got 3 quality starts by the definition of quality start. 6 innings, 2 earned, 7 innings, no earned, 7 innings, 1 earned. Absolutely dynamite starting pitching for them. If Marshall and Darden can really add to what Kanak has done this season with Tristan Smith out and Austin Gordon seemingly set to be a bullpen piece, this is huge for them going down the stretch. But it's also interesting that Aiden Kanak had 7 no-hit innings, and then the game was 13-12 final score after that. Micah, what thoughts do you have on these 2 teams?
I think we saw that Clemson's the best team in the ACC, and I thought it was interesting, Monty. You asked the question, should we be concerned about Clemson? I walk away actually more like pleasantly surprised than anything. You had a desperate Notre Dame team this weekend
at home,
who, especially on Sunday, right? I mean, I don't know about you, Monty, but if Nick, anyone who's listening, if you've played a sport before, when you're kicking the living out of somebody and it's getaway day, you're gonna check out. Clemson checked out. Notre Dame's like, this ain't over yet. I'm not done. Like, comes all the way back. And what does Clemson do? Oh, yeah, we're still better than you. No big deal. And wins the game.
That's a good point.
Like, if Clemson, my concern would have been with Clemson is if they lost the game. They still won the game, even though they clearly, I'm going to be the first one to admit, I checked out on it. I was like, okay, I don't need to worry about this game at all. And then all of a sudden I look at my phone and I'm like, what in the world's going on here? So then I dialed it back in, and again, you can say, well, Clemson scored, was it 3 in the 11th, but then gave up 2 in the 11th. But at the end of the day, they got the job done. And obviously Friday was a little tight, but and I think what's been most impressive is Clemson can win in multiple ways. They can play these 13-12 games and win. They can play these 3-2 games and win. I mean, I saw if Mark Light Magic didn't exist, I saw exactly what Clemson was. Which, by the way, we'll get to Miami in a little bit. But, it's just impressive to me that this team finds ways to win. And, I mean, ask Miami what it means to go to Notre Dame on the road. And, as someone that was in South Florida with Clemson and then sat in a freezing cold game on Saturday night in Blacksburg, seeing the temperatures in Notre Dame, I feel bad for those players who were dying of humidity and heat exhaustion one weekend, and the next weekend have to see how many parka jackets they can put on while in the dugout in between innings. So I think this just shows how battle tested this Clemson team can be and is, and just how, in my opinion, just how much better they are than Notre Dame. Yeah, and it's good. Thank you for pulling that up, Monty. I'm guessing that was you because it would have been Nick or I. They really did. I mean, they kind of just let Notre Dame come back in, foot off the gas, and Notre Dame's a good enough ball club to where you can't do that. You can't just, no big deal, call it a night kind of thing. But it was very impressive overall for me to see them sweep and kind of just take care of business. And I mean, now they're in their right spot. No offense, Virginia Tech, but now they're in the correct spot in the ACC pecking order of the first place team.
Yeah, I don't have any concerns. I think it's just kind of trying to get a little nitpicky so we have something to talk about. But yeah, there's
Clemson
not much.
Stinks. The sky is falling. They're gonna miss the tournament.
It's crazy because Micah, you brought up a great point that they can win any way they want to, like close game. They can relax and then come back, and then some team can come back, and it's like, oh, okay, we'll turn it back on again. Don't forget about the Florida State series where they had to come back. in all 3 games. Like, that's what's really impressive, is that they just showed you in another series 3 different ways on how they can win ball games. Like, I think that's what makes Clemson different than all the other teams, is that they have shown you time and time again different ways of winning these games.
Yep, and Eric Bakich is fantastic. One of the best coaches in the country for a reason. Moving along to Nick's NC State Wolfpack. Yep, and Micah's Louisville Cardinals. Wow. Micah and I both expected Louisville to win. We both predicted in our pick. Well, I don't know if we expected it, but we both predicted it. Louisville to win. I don't think either of us expected necessarily a sweep. I don't think this means NC State's a bad team. I just thought that NC State going on the road and NC State being a little inconsistent would be a problem. Obviously, the big thing, if you're looking at the starting pitching lines, no Sam Highfill, no Logan Whitaker. That's big. And the Friday night game was only 7 innings. Gongora, co-ACC Player of the Week with the previously mentioned Aiden Kanak of Clemson. 7 innings, 11 Ks, and then from there on, that was the best pitching performance. But, for NC State, some positives. Garrett Pennington, Nick and I was just talking about this before the show. One of the best could be the best first baseman, could be our all-star first baseman, but there's a number of the first baseman position in the ACC has a lot of guys putting up big numbers, but he went 4 for 12 with 4 extra base hits, 7 RBIs. But Louisville's lineup looks like it's starting to settle a little bit. I didn't have to go through 18 different players this week. They seem to have settled a little bit. Micah, we'll start with you talking about Louisville, and then we'll transition to Nick talking about NC State. But what are your thoughts on Louisville?
Look at that beautiful Sunday starting pitcher. Don't we love to see Carson Liggett in the rotation? Oh, that made my when I saw the lineup graphic get posted yesterday, I almost stopped what I was doing, aka working my ETSU Mercer game, and saying, "Hey guys, intern, take over music. I'm gonna go in the press box or in the suite over here and watch my boy shove for." I was hoping more than 4 1/3, but we'll take what we can get right now. Honestly, I was excited to obviously see that. I think what my takeaway is, I think, like I said, Louisville setting into the lineup. You said that well, Monty. I mean, watching Louisville in person last weekend against Florida State was so much different than even what we saw against Wake Forest. We saw, when Nick and I were there on that Thursday night, we saw a Louisville team that, had the ability, but you just didn't know, like there just didn't seem to be a consistency to it. And then in Tallahassee, we saw a little bit more consistency. Again, they didn't take that series, but Florida State is Florida State. This weekend, we saw a little bit more comfortability. We saw the comforts of the home field advantage. It also made me feel pretty good because I've been very hesitant on NC State, and a lot of those skeletons in the closet kind of came back out. But for me, this Louisville lineup is just so deep. Monty, I'm making my official announcement. I will be attending Friday and Saturday's Louisville, Virginia games. So I'm obviously very excited to see what that will be. And if Carson Liggett is the starter, I'm going to Nashville just to expose myself. Big hockey guy too. Go Columbus Blue Jackets. They're playing the Predators Saturday night, so I can do UVA baseball and Blue Jackets hockey. So it's gonna be sick. But Sunday, if Carson Liggett, I'll be at all 3. But anyways, I can't wait to just kind of see again more of what this lineup is, and obviously the Virginia fan in me is very scared what this might mean this coming weekend. But overall, I thought they also got a really good, again, Sebastian Gongora, ACC pitcher of the week, and it's well deserved. He was phenomenal. Evan Webster was good, obviously. Didn't go as long as you would hope, but at the end of the day, I think Dan McDonald's getting comfortable with who his guys are. And I kind of like that, looking at what we've seen now recently, he almost sent a message to the team that no job is safe. You have to night in and night out earn it. I don't give it. Like he's like, I don't give a crap, if you have a good day today, but then a bad day tomorrow. If you're not consistent, I don't want you in my lineup. And, we were questioning it. And again, there's still a lot to do, but, in terms of RPI jumps, they jumped the most of any ACC team has at any point during ACC play. They jumped 39 spots just in this weekend sweep, which is obviously huge for them because they went from 130 to in the 80s, which still might not put them in the tournament right now, but you win the series against Virginia, you're probably moving up into the 60s and you move up into the 50s. So that was obviously great. I do want to pose a question to Nick, though, Monty, if I can steal the
Real quick,
liaison role here for a second.
yeah,
Go ahead.
real quick, I just want to point out Zion Rose, a freshman who's been absolutely outstanding. I have him listed as the DH here, but I think he DH'd. He played catcher and he played center field in all 3 games. So
and he follows us on Twitter, the Fifth Quarter ACC page. So shout out to Zion Rose, an absolute joke.
I just wanted to mention that. But yeah, go ahead, Micah, and pose your question to Nick when Nick gives us his thoughts on NC.
Dominic Fritton, Nick.
I thought that.
I mean, he's the only name on this screen that we kind of have had as the rotational piece, and it's the same. I mean, Nick, I'm just curious because I'm sure you saw, because you run an NC State Twitter account too. You probably saw all the tweets about him, and I don't think they're all justified, but I'm curious kind of where you land on should Fritton still be in the rotation, because like I understand the frustration, but he still has the stuff to be good. And with, obviously you're down a couple arms. I mean, where are you sitting on him specifically? Because, I'm not putting too much into Heath Andrews or even, on his outing, but just where you sat, because he just couldn't really find the zone. And when he did, it was kind of a nice little meatball.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for Dom. He doesn't have, I don't think he has a win. I think he has some no decisions, but I don't think he has a win in conference play. It's been a tough go. And I don't know, putting him in that kind of spot when your 2 other starters are down this week is tough for him, I guess, moving him to Saturday, knowing that he's got to probably be the guy this weekend when he's usually not, is a tough spot. I don't think they'll make a switch yet. I think we'll wait 1 more week and see how he does, if he can get back into the Sunday role. And if that turns into not so good, we could see a switch sooner rather than later. I know Jacob Duden's been doing really well. Ryan also has been doing really well. He's usually our midweek guy.
Van Dam.
Yeah. It's and Van Dam, yeah. I honestly feel bad for Dom, because he was supposed to be, kind of the cornerstone of this rotation, the reliable guy, the young, freshman last year that had all this experience, that got a lot of experience last year, and was going to carry that over. And so far, it has not been good. So I could see the move being justified and seeing it happen sooner rather than later. But in terms of like the whole series itself, I'm not going to weigh too much on about it. Now, it's frustrating as a State fan. They don't have a conference series road win. They got swept by Georgia Tech. They got swept by Louisville. They only have 2 home series left in the season. The series finale against Wake, and they played Carolina, I think, a couple weeks before that. But they still got to go to Clemson. They still got to go to Florida State. And those teams are riding really high right now. This team's got to figure out how to win on the road, or else it's going to be big trouble. Like, they're going to have to rely on sweeping their home series, their remaining 2, if they want to have a shot at, right now hosting's kind of out of the question at the moment, but it's tough. Now, I'm not going to weigh too much again, because we were down Sam and we were down Logan. And Sam's been throwing the ball really, really well. He seems to be back in form, but it's so frustrating that they can sweep a series and then get swept the next week. Like, we've seen that twice already, where they swept BC, then they got swept by Georgia Tech. They swept Notre Dame, they get swept by Louisville. It's very frustrating. There's no consistency. I think a lot of it has to do is that they can't win on the road.
Yep, and offensively, outside of Garrett Pennington, nobody else had more than 2 hits.
Yeah.
That's not going to get the job done. So tough for them, but they're who do they got next week? I've got it at the end of the slide, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Good question. We'll get there. I forgot.
No need to think ahead. We'll get there. All right, time to get to Miami at Duke. What a wild series. Miami loses all 3 by a combined 3 runs. Once again, they ride their starting pitching, but unfortunately that doesn't get the job done. Alex Stone, Ben Miller, big time performances. Wallace Clark, huge. And I believe 2 of these 3 games went into extras, if not all 3. And all ended in walk-off fashion. Is that right? I think so. It was quite a series. Duke keeps pushing on. They needed to get the series win. Obviously, Miami needed to show something on the road. It's tough for Miami because they were close, but no cigar. Jacoby Long, Dorian Gonzalez Jr. both had monster series, but beyond them, not much production for the Canes. Nick, what are your thoughts on these 2 teams? Miami's now got a losing record, I believe, at 15-16 on the year.
And I think that they are better than what their record shows. I mean, it's got to be so frustrating for this Miami ball club because, we were told that they were supposed to be this gritty team that relied on like their toughness and stuff, that the culture's changed. And right now they're really just being out-gritted, that's just frustrating. I don't know. Does anyone see them making regionals at this point? I mean, I know this series was really close, but
I've been saying it all year. I didn't see them making the NCAA tournament this year, and there were a couple times where they wanted to prove me wrong when they won their series at home against Virginia and North Carolina, and then won that walk-off at Clemson. I was like, it was driving me a little nuts, but this is exactly the results I'm kind of expecting from Miami. Not exactly this close. They obviously played a lot better than I think I've expected them to play, but those midweek losses are also racking up.
Yeah, that's what's killing them right now. Like their RPI keeps dropping tremendously because they are losing these midweek games. And it's not just like as of recent, this has been a story since the beginning of the season. They've been dropping midweek games left and right. Like, is their midweek record like even a winning record? I doubt it.
I don't think so. And I tell you what, again, it comes to their best 3 pitchers, or they're not going to try and use Nick Robert during the midweeks either. So their best 4 pitchers, their best reliever, and their best 3 starters are pretty much going to be exclusively saved for the weekend, and that's probably been a problem. But yeah, I'm not sure. Miami, it's funny because there's so many teams that are dying for starting pitching, and Miami's got it, but they don't really have. They don't play great defense. They don't run the bases super well, and they don't have a bullpen outside of Nick Robert, who's a freshman. So, it's kind of scary. But good news on the Duke side, Kyle Johnson is back and pitched well. Micah, what do you think about this Duke team finding ways to win?
Blue collar program, baby, as they like to kind of identify themselves as.
Gritty.
I will say right now, any Miami fans watching, listening, I am accepting applications. If you pay for me to go down to Tallahassee this weekend, Miami is undefeated when I'm in attendance. So, if last time you won a baseball game, I was there. So I will gladly go. I will cancel my plans to go to Louisville this weekend, and I'll go down to Tallahassee if you want to pay for my trip back down there. Just throwing that out there. But no, I mean, it's funny, Monty, if we would have said, oh yeah, Miami starting pitching outperformed Duke, you would go, okay, what would you at least take 1, maybe 2?
Yeah, I would trust their bullpen to have at least blown 1.
Yeah,
but I think if you told me all 3 starters to an extent outperformed, I would have said, okay, they had a good chance at winning 2 of 3 on the road.
Yeah, I mean, Gage Zeal quietly has been one of the best starting pitchers in the conference over the last couple weekends.
Yeah.
And
It was, he was ACC
he
pitcher.
outperformed, in my opinion, Santucci.
Yeah. I mean, and keep in mind, I think he's going longer because they don't have any trust in their bullpen.
I mean,
so
you're one walk-off, maybe fair, maybe foul home run away from Gage Steele having back-to-back weekends of incredible outings that he loses, or like not he specifically. Actually, he's not responsible for the loss, obviously, in this one, but like his team loses. I mean, it's got to be frustrating, for them. I think the part that's the most disheartening is, and Nick nailed it, and Monty, obviously you've been skeptical, but I think this team is more than capable of being a regional team. But I don't want to say that their season's done, because anything is possible. This team's talented enough.
They could win the ACC tournament and get
exactly. But they're in trouble, Monty, because obviously I know we're talking recap here, but they go to Florida State. They still got to go on the road to Virginia Tech. The remaining home weekends are Georgia Tech and Pitt. Winnable series is regardless of where they go.
They don't necessarily need the magic as much, hopefully, for those two series.
The mark like magic would have been much better used for Florida State or Virginia Tech or, so on and so forth. So it's going to be hard. Like, this is going to be a team, Monty, that's going to, I'm calling it right now, Boston College, hope that you are not paired with them in a pool, because they're going to be the team that's going to knock somebody that's on the bubble in the ACC out of it, because they're going to be under 500, but the best under 500 team in all of Power 5 college baseball. Actually, probably all of baseball at that point. Like, it is mind, like, Monty, I'm working on the bracketology right now, and I want to keep Miami in, but I cannot take myself seriously as a bracketologist and put a team under 500 in the NCAA tournament. Like, at that point, I might as well put the entire SEC in, and hello, Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri, you're going.
Like, Missouri has a winning record against Florida this year. So, it's just, it's so frustrating, because I know this team is capable of it. It's just, and like, what stinks is they played well enough to beat, in my opinion, Nick said it earlier, and I kind of disagree. I don't think North Carolina or Virginia are the best team in the Coastal. I think the best team in the Coastal is on our screen right now in Duke. And it stinks that you're that, like, Miami has played the best two teams in the ACC, in my opinion. And they got the third best team coming up this weekend, in my opinion. And there's a good chance that they are going to be 1-8, 2-7, probably. I'm hoping they can maybe get one right against Florida State. But let's say right now 1-5 with a win, like with a 1-run win, and then like 4 1-run losses, and then the one blowout. I mean, they're right there. They are, and like, I think the most frustrating part, because I got to watch that Sunday game, was when Miami goes up 10-7 in extras. I'm like, all right, they can hold Duke to under 3. And the worst part, if you didn't watch it, is Duke did all 4 runs and only 1 out was recorded. It wasn't like, they're down to their last strike and they're right there. I mean, Duke just said, okay, bet, base hit, walk, base hit, just.
Remember, we were concerned about Duke's offense? Everybody was, not just us. Remember that? That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Ben Miller continues to rake. And we got Wallace Clark is on the screen for Jake. I mentioned earlier, we can't get
best player to ever come from Oklahoma that now plays at Duke.
Yeah. He got on base a bunch of times still, so super consistent, great playing at shortstop there. But yeah, Duke for me is the best team in the Coastal. I think they haven't always shown it, but I still think they have the most complete pitching staff. But Charlie Bielenson pitched in all 3 games. He seems to have a rubber arm. I think Tyler Jennings of Prospect Live, listed next to him, coined the nickname Ground Chuck Bielenson. I kind of like that. But yeah, he pitched in all 3 games, high leverage innings. I think multiple innings each time. which is nuts, even as a reliever. But really, really great performances from Duke. But you're still seeing, Proksch looked good on one day and then wasn't the best the other. And then Talon came in and he'd been looking really good most of the time. And then he looked a little rough. And then O'Shell looked good this weekend, but next weekend he might not. So if they can get some of these guys to really nail down, but the fact is they still can go like 7 guys deep in the bullpen, which is ridiculous. When some teams like Miami, for instance, can go 1 man deep in the bullpen that they can really rely on. Anyway, moving along.
Quickly, before you can change the screen if you want. I just have a quick question because we haven't talked since you got a chance to check out Jack Coombs. Is there any way that place can actually host a regional? Like, I'm being kind of serious here. Like, they say they can. That's the whole renovation thing was supposedly for that. I have no idea how they can. Like, half the seats are obstructed.
Yep. I don't know exactly how they would have to.
You saw it full. I didn't see it full. So like obviously I could move around and kind of. Well, you saw more than 20% of the stadium, and like you saw people inside the stadium.
It was a really.
When I went, it was like mainly Rider parents.
Yeah, it was a really good atmosphere, but it's just not. I don't.
Could you imagine if they put like Auburn or Alabama, like one of these SEC teams in like there's a 2 seed and
the fans travel.
Or like you get maybe a dangerous 3-seeded UNC Greensboro who's got not a major fan base, right? But they get a couple hundred people to drive 20 minutes over, to go to Duke. Like I just don't. I'm not trying to slander the place because I do like quirky ballparks like that, but like if you sit in the general admission hill, you have to be on the very top of the hill to be able to see the entire, like to actually see first base or see the pitcher's mound or see like. Anyways, I just was curious if you think that actually could legitimate host a regional or if it should just be move it to the DBAP as I
that's what I'm looking at right now is the regional weekend.
Are the Durham Bulls are the Durham Bulls in town?
They are I think so. It would be the first Saturday.
It'd be the first weekend of June.
I think they are. I think it would be open. The DPAP would be. I think looking at it, it's great out.
May 26th is selection day, or selection Sunday, I should say. So, or I guess the 27th.
The 27th.
So it's June, whatever.
Yep. Their next home series is against the Gwinnett Braves on Tuesday the 4th. So they could, in theory, host a regional, but not a super regional.
Okay.
Whose stadium is bigger? Is it Jack Holmes or is it Campbell? Because if you remember last year, Micah, we kind of thought that like maybe the reason why Campbell isn't hosting because they were on the cusp, like they were right there.
Jack Coombs can probably host more, Nick, because they have all that grass space that they can justify. Because you could probably say that ballpark could hold 2,000 people. Like fire code wise, you could probably say it can hit 2. Where Campbell, you can't. There's no hill like that and stuff like that.
Right.
You're telling me which place would I rather watch a baseball game at? I'd go Campbell.
No, yeah. But I was just wondering, like, we talked about it last year with Campbell. Was that maybe the reason why they weren't hosting? Like, because they were like technically the 17th or 18th seed.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't know. It's just, I guess Monty. When I heard all these renovations, right? They spent the year at the DBAP. All these renovations. We can't make like. I'm sure they made it a lot better for the players, but like
they're still not done.
Okay, well that's good. I thought I heard they were done. So
no, Aaron mentioned to me when we were setting up on the media area, which is outside. He was mentioning that it'll be a lot better when the renovations get done next year. So there's still more renovations coming for Coombs, which is good because the other thing is I'm pretty sure the locker rooms are they Cameron Indoor?
Yep, you got to walk. I don't know if you remember my video, but I literally just happened to walk out of Cameron Indoor and followed the players over to the field.
Okay, I didn't see that particular video. When I was walking out, I was following one of the players in full uniform across campus. And I was like, this is weird. So
Yeah, I almost asked Kyle Johnson for a quick interview on the way to the field because I was just walking right behind him.
Yeah,
let's do like the Jay Billis, like let's walk the baseline to baseline. Let's walk from locker room to bullpen together, and let's do a quick interview.
Right. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, it does look like the DPAP is open for the first weekend. Whether that's something they'd agree to, who knows? But that would be obviously the ideal situation for Duke if they're hosting rather than Coombs. But anyway, on to our final series of the weekend. It was the Demon Deacons bouncing back with a huge sweep over the upstart Virginia Tech Hokies. Pretty entertaining series, but ultimately, Wake Forest came up on top in all three games thanks to one Nick Kurtz, who went 7 of 11 with a double, 5 home runs, 9 RBIs, and ACC Player of the Week honors. It was easily his best performance of the season. Obviously, he was hurt for a couple of weeks, and then before that, he was struggling to get going. But I do want to shout out Jack Winay, who is always underrated. I feel like he's had an awesome year. He continues to rake very quietly under the radar, even, when he was replacing Kurtz at first base. And Seaver King, just 2 really productive home runs that resulted in 6 RBIs and getting the job done, whereas the Hokies weren't able to really muster a whole ton of extra base hits as they've been known to do. Still, I still came away not terribly unimpressed with Virginia Tech. I'll start with Nick talking about Wake Forest. Nick, you wrote an article going into the weekend about the reinforcements they were getting in the bullpen, and obviously Nick Kurtz getting going. How are you feeling about Wake Forest after they proved you right this weekend?
Oh man, I feel great about them. The vibes. This is the happiest I've seen the guys all year. I saw a lot of them today walking in the store. They're all happy. They felt like everything was back. Like Nick felt great. Massey felt great. It was awesome. It was awesome to see. It was awesome to watch. I swear one of the players made a good point. I think it was David Falco who I saw today. He said, if that game was played at the couch, Nick would have had like 2 other homers, because one went off the top of the wall and then one was like a fly ball to the warning track, I think. So if that was at the couch, Nick would have had like 7 home runs this weekend, which is insane. This was the performance that Wake Forest needed. I think the Cole coming back on Tuesday against UNCG just lit a spark, because what the vibe has been like all season is that there is personality and something missing in that dugout.
And Cole Rowland's got a ton of personality.
Exactly. Like when you look at last year's squad, everyone had their own personality. Tommy Hawk, Brock Wilkin, Cam Manassi, Rhett Lauder. They were all characters. This team was missing that character, and I think Cole and Crawford Wade, their lefty senior this year, who does have a medical red shirt, so he could be back next year as well. Them coming back kind of felt like old times for them. So going into this series was huge, was absolutely huge. But
and it's huge, obviously, for the likes of Will Ray and Zach Johnston, who have really kind of shouldered the load and kind of carried the bullpen. Other than that, no one's really been consistent. So it'll be nice. Now you've all of a sudden doubled the amount of quality arms that you can really rely on in the Wake Forest bullpen, which has been really rough this year.
And I think it helped some of the younger arms too, like to help them calm down, like Josh Gunther had a pretty decent weekend this weekend. And look at the rotation. The rotation had a great week. Like this was Josh's best game. Massey's getting better and better. Chase, we know what Chase can do. I mean, this is the best they've looked so far this season. I do want to pose a question to Micah, which made me laugh this weekend or today. So Will Ray is pitching. I don't know what day it was, because I think he pitched twice this weekend, correct?
Yeah, I think he pitched Friday and Sunday.
I think it was Sunday, maybe. I don't remember. He's on the mound and he can see you with your phone filming, right behind home plate. And he said, I can't believe you didn't tell me this. Did some Virginia Tech fans get kicked out next to you?
Yes.
I tweeted about it, Nick.
Yeah, he tweeted about it.
I must have missed it.
They didn't deserve it,
I thought
apparently.
you would have told me.
So here's okay, I'll tell a quick story time. I'll try to keep it quick, Monty. We're actually, by the way, shout out to us. We might be under an hour and 45 minutes for the first time ever. I probably just jinxed it. But anyways, so these guys were talking crap all game. And there were a couple times I was like, they kind of went a little far. I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys was catching strays about his girlfriend going to Michigan and how JJ McCarthy was on his way to steal his girl. Whoever his girl's dating is at Michigan, Nick, that's who they were going after. But nothing like it never got that bad. And it kind of like in the 7th and 8th inning, because Wake had kind of started taking the lead, it started just to be kind of how can we rattle the pitchers? So it was like, anytime the ball was in the dirt, they would just yell dirt over and over again. Like, just things dumb college kids do. Nothing over. Like I have heard way worse, even at our games at ETSU. And we don't even like pretend like we have super fans for baseball. And all of a sudden, this security guard just walks up and says, I've been told you guys have been warned, you got to go. And we're like, what? Like, dude, the whole ball booed the police when they were escorting them out. And it seemed to be a trend because if you saw a 5th quarter Coastal Carolinas thing, it happened at Coastal on Saturday too. So I don't really know what happened. Maybe something got said when I wasn't in my seat. But when I sat there the whole game, I never once thought it was that bad. It's actually funny because on one of the videos I got of, I don't remember who it was ending the inning. You can hear the security guard telling them they got to go. And it was like, what in the world is happening? So that was really funny. Shout out to Will for seeing me recording on my phone. That makes me feel like I'm a paparazzi. So let him know that if he wants any of the video footage, I got him. If he wants to see his stuff from behind home plate.
Know. Yeah, he came in this morning. He was like, yeah, Micah was there, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I swear I saw him as I was pitching behind like this. And then the next thing I know, like 3 or 4 Virginia Tech fans are getting kicked out. And from what I heard is that, I don't know, Micah, maybe you didn't hear a lot of it, like where you were, but the Wake guys, like even like Will's girlfriend who came in with them was like, they were ruthless. Absolutely ruthless.
I mean, ruthless is a fair term, but like, I don't think it was anything that's justifiable to get kicked out. Like, I mean,
right. Yeah.
I'm not the type of guy to say that like, you should go and be unsportsmanlike, but there's this thing called home field advantage, right? Like,
yeah,
you should be allowed, like, Nick, I'm going to bite my tongue because I don't want Wake Forest fans to come after me. But there are fan bases in this conference and especially in other conferences that calling out where your girlfriend's from is by like the lowest on the scale of bad things they do.
I mean, the Cameron crazies do it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, so it wasn't, in my opinion, ever too far. There were some things, again, that got said that, again, there were 1 or 2 people that probably should have gone, but they kicked out a whole group. Like, I actually got scared for a second there, Nick, that they thought I was a part of it. Because I was wearing the credential, and I was like, oh, God, like, what if they're about to throw me out, and I didn't even say anything? Like, I think the most I said all game was that was a filthy pitch to one of the Tech fans that got mad at me because I was kind of a Wake homer. Oops.
That was a quick Micah story, folks.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, imagine the regular stories.
You don't want to be a part of that, Monty.
But hey, I think I was going to come in and support Dioli's tomorrow before the Wake game. Forget that. What's your biggest competitor?
I thought that was really funny when Will came in today. I thought that was hilarious. Can I pose a question to the panel, though?
Well, we haven't talked about Virginia Tech enough.
It is about Virginia
Micah
Tech.
hasn't even talked about the game, and he was there.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Micah.
For first, I want to present to you some show and tell. So I was mad that I did not film Nick Kurtz's home run. I filmed every Nick Kurtz at bat because I knew he was going to hit one. And the one I didn't film was in the 9th inning when he hit the home run. So you know what I went and did? Got the baseball. So
wow.
Yeah. Go me.
You want that signed? I could get that signed for you.
No, I don't really.
You're a credentialed media member and you went and got the ball.
It was after the game. They just left it there. Granted, it was the 9th inning, you know.
I'm just messing.
Plus, technically, I was not credentialed media. I was credentialed all access ETSU baseball. So, shout out to the SID for letting me use my pass. I asked for permission, but shout out to him for letting me use my ETSU pass for a game that wasn't ETSU. So, real one for that. Shout out to Michael. But anyways, before we get to Virginia Tech, I just wanted to simply say Wake is back, and that is it. Now we can go to Monty, whatever you want to pose for Virginia Tech.
No. I mean, tell me about Tech.
Tech is.
What are your thoughts on Tech?
I don't think they're that bad. Like I thought, like this was catching Wake Forest. No, I'm not saying that you were saying that. I'm just like some people at the ballpark, especially, were like, "Oh, this is very Virginia Tech. We're overrated." Like, yes, I did think Virginia Tech, when you talk about especially D1 baseball rankings, right, the ones that everyone seems to talk about, they should be talking about ours, but talk about D1. I thought they were overranked because I didn't think that they're better than Florida State. But on the flip side, like what we saw this weekend was the unanimous #1 preseason team. That's what we saw. And you were like blow for blow right there with them. I mean, they got the chase going.
Didn't play particularly well offensively. I mean, DeMartini only gets 2 hits.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and you saw a Wake Forest lineup that top to bottom all kind of contributed. I mean, Seaver King only hits 200 on the weekend, but when he hit it, he hit it.
Yeah.
So, it was just overall this Wake Forest team. I mean, prayers to Boston College this weekend, because there is a very good chance that this Wake Forest team is just like, as a Virginia guy, Monty, I am very glad that Virginia got that series out of the way early. So it was obviously pleasant to see for Wake, but on the Virginia Tech side, like, I mean, I thought Wyatt Parliament pitched. I mean, again, I'm just going to speak on the game that I was at. I thought he pitched really well.
Yeah, I watched.
I thought he had command of the zone. He made Wake Forest earn getting on base. Obviously only with the 1 walk and the hits. Again, like, we know this Wake Forest lineup can hit. He limited the damage as much as he could. I mean, Josh Hartle just was a little bit better. And at the end of the day, like, again, just speaking on him and Wyatt Parliament, like, he looked great. Again, Brett Renfro looked great, good on Friday. I mean, Griffin Stieg was a little rocky on Sunday, but Virginia Tech also had some really untimely mistakes throughout the game that just kind of cost them. They left some guys on base they probably shouldn't have. And I mean, at the end of the day, I thought I walked away, Monty, I thought it was funny. You clipped my I'm now a Virginia Tech fan stuff and sent that to me personally. Thanks for not putting that all over social media.
Right.
But I actually walked away like pleasantly pleased with Virginia Tech because, as someone that wants to, who doesn't mind when they're not good, it was, the atmosphere was great. The fans were in it. There was a lot of trash talk about, oh, the seats were empty. Well, I mean, granted, especially on Saturday night, it was 41 degrees. Like, it was bitter cold for a, Virginia early April kind of night. But overall, I just thought it was a well-played series, and just the better team got it done at the end of the day. And I don't think we can think Virginia Tech's anything less than an NCAA tournament team after this weekend.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out, this was last year's Virginia Tech pitching staff. They're giving up at least 40 runs in this series. The way Wake Forest was hitting the ball, so the fact they only end up giving up 24 it shows the progress I think they've made as a team, and they've got at least competent pitching, which for the most part is going to do enough to win series like this. Of course, again, Wake Forest was one of their best performances of the year in ACC play. But Nick, you had a question you wanted to pose to the panel.
Micah kind of answered it. Like, how are we kind of feeling about Virginia Tech? Because we knew that the first half of the schedule couldn't have been easier in conference play with Louisville, Pitt, BC, and Notre Dame. And now they get Wake. And Wake coming in, was not great, but they caught Wake when everything started to click. So are we still saying that I agree with Micah. They're still NCAA tournament team. Are they still like good enough to host a regional? Like the starting pitching really wasn't all that bad. Like this weekend, they just ran into what Micah said, the actual unanimous number one team that we thought we should have seen. So where do we sit with Virginia Tech at the moment?
I never thought. Go ahead, Monty. Sorry.
I was going to say, I still think Virginia Tech, I mean, it obviously this opinion can change with results that come out next, but to me, I still think they're good enough to be in that host conversation if they can rebound. I mean, we just found out Louisville is not an easy road trip, right? NC State told us that. So that looks a little bit more impressive than I think it did last week. But, obviously the other results, going to BC, Florida State struggled big time. Virginia Tech went up there and swept. So yes, they've had a little bit easier schedule, but I think we can kind of see that I think they could be pushing for a host, but there's a thin line. I think sometimes, it just takes a couple of bad weeks of games and you could go from in the host conversation to on the bubble.
Yeah.
I think Virginia Tech's going to be one of the more dangerous 2 seeds. I don't see them as a host. I have yet to see them as a host. I mean, and again, the schedule is only going to get harder. Monty obviously just alluded to it. You still have Duke, you still have UNC, you still have Virginia. It's not.
They haven't owned UVA over the last couple of years. So
no, but I'm just saying, like, there's still a ton of meat on that schedule.
Yeah.
To kind of come at that, but. This team is going to be dangerous in the field. Like, if you're, a regional host, you don't want them in your regional. I know I had predicted last week in my bracketology Virginia Tech going to Knoxville, and my Tennessee buddy's like, God, please don't let that happen. We do not want that because Virginia Tech's will travel well. It's going to be a dangerous team that's going to push like a Tennessee to the brink of a potential elimination game. So. They're a good ball club. No doubt about that. I don't see them as a host. But again, like, they're also, Monty, you said it, they're not out of the hosting picture. I mean, if you win the North Carolina series or the Duke series or the Virginia series or 2 of 3, you probably are a host, right? Like, you're right there. Your RPI is going to obviously come up. Their RPI is kind of sitting in like the 20s, if I'm not mistaken, last I looked. So, they're right there. So, yeah, I mean, I would have felt more positive about that potential if they would have gotten 1 this weekend. I just don't think you can get swept as a team and be a top 16 seed. I know that's maybe an unfair statement, but it's just hard to think that a top 16 team can get swept at home. But at the end of the day, I mean, baseball's a long game, not a 3-game sample size. So.
All right, well, that's going to sum up our recaps. We're moving now into the standings and next week's games. As you can see, Micah mentioned it earlier, Clemson has claimed their throne atop the Atlantic division. They haven't clinched it or anything, but they have taken the seat there as we expected them to. I think they were actually on it beforehand at 7-2, but they have cemented it now at 28-3 on the year. Florida State in second after their series win at Boston College. NC State slips down. You can see Louisville, as I mentioned earlier, is ahead of Wake Forest, then Boston College, with Notre Dame missing the ACC tournament in 7th. The Coastal Division is pretty crowded there at the top. 4 teams within 2 games of each other, with North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Duke, and Virginia all right there on top of each other. Georgia Tech, a distant 5th, with Miami just behind them, and Pittsburgh 3 games behind Miami. So lots to look at here, but starting with ACC play, does anyone have any thoughts on the standings before we move into talking about next weekend's games?
I need to do a better job of not forgetting about the teams not going to Charlotte and their ACC record, because I left them both at 2-10, and I'm really upset about it. But that's all I have.
Yeah.
Like, Monty, you just opened my eyes to the fact that they've played 15 games. I just kind of went completely like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, 10 teams have played 15 games, and then 4 teams have played 12. So those 4 teams will be playing on exam weekend in early May. That is while the other 10 teams are either off or playing non-conference. So we got the – go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say, tough to see Miami down there.
I don't think it's that tough.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who had him preseason top 25, the only one, it's really weird seeing Miami down there. I should say it's more weird than it is tough.
Don't worry. Canes, Cats, Heat, whatever this was at 305. I'm guessing just based off area codes. I think you'll be okay. You're still 3 games up on a team that. I think you're okay. You'll be all right.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to next week's games. We've got a Thursday through Saturday game that we're actually going to be broadcasting during the beginning of probably, but doing our all-star selection show for the ACC. But we've got the Sunshine State rivalry here. Miami at number 12, Florida State. Hopefully Cam Leiter's back on the mound for the Seminoles, giving them that 1-2 punch with Jamie Arnold, and then Whitaker on Saturday, although Carson Dorsey did really well in his first career start this past weekend. Nick, we'll start with you. You going Miami or Florida State here?
I'm going to continue to ride the weird Miami train and take Miami.
There was a long pause as you debated that. I was like, I did say Nick, right? All right, you're going Miami. All right, that's bold. I like it.
I think I figured out what the secret ingredient is at Dioli's now, based off his pick.
So, by the way, Nick,
yes, correct.
Micah, is that you're going Florida State? Oh, okay, that's a yes. For those listening on the podcast, Micah put on a Florida State hat and did the Seminole. Is it a chop?
Yes, it's a chop.
Yeah, I know the Braves call it chop, but. Yeah, I'm going to go with Micah on this one. I think Florida State.
And I'm just going to call my shot, Monty. It's a sweep.
All right. I like it. There's no bonuses for that, but you can pat yourself on the back if it happens. I
can just do it now.
There you go. I'm going Florida State, Cam Leiter or no Cam Leiter. Jamie Arnold, I hope to see him have another fantastic start. So yeah, that's 2 of us going Florida State, and then Nick going outside the box because the ACC's nuts. You never know who's going to have the big weird weekend, and I think Nick's going Miami for the big weird weekend in the ACC this weekend. But Wake Forest headed up north to Boston College. Micah, we'll start with you. Do you think Boston College has any chance against these Demon Deacons? That's a no. He's putting on the Wake Forest hat.
That is correct. Boston College, I love you. I believe in you, but I don't believe in you enough to beat what I think might be the most dangerous team in the ACC right now. So,
Nick, do you got a fancy hat to put on?
No, I don't, but I'll go with Wake. Over under, where are we setting it on Nick Kurt's home runs this series? 3.5.
The way the wind seems to be kind of blowing in, it looked like a lot when I saw those cuts. I'm gonna say under 3.5. I'm gonna go 2.5. I think you said at 2.5, and then maybe I take the over. But
if it was 3.5 extra base hits, I'd take it.
Oh, easy.
Oh yeah.
I think if you gave me 3.5 extra base hits in one game, I'd even take it because I mean he did a great job of just putting the ball in play this weekend. I mean, again, he almost had a couple other home runs in that game, so on Saturday at least. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Wake Forest as well. I think 2 out of 3 at the very least, if not a sweep. Yeah, I'm going Wake Forest. Chase Burns should have an electric night, and then I really want to see Josh Hartle have keep building off these almost good starts that he's had last couple of weekends, and then Massey just continuing to be Michael Massey. So now we're going on to the Duke Blue Devils. They head up to the Steel City to take on the Grittsburg Panthers. Nick, who you got in this one?
Give me Duke there. I think you guys I don't know why I said the Virginia Carolina series was like the 2 best teams, because clearly I think I just kind of got caught up in how great that series was, but Duke has been hands down the best team right now in the Coastal. And they're playing the worst team in the Coastal, so this should be like almost a bye week for them. Give me Duke 3-0.
Yeah, Micah, would you agree with that?
We ride until dawn.
No way.
No way.
I'm kidding.
Okay, he was putting on a Pitt Panthers hat. Now he's switched to the Duke hat. He tried to send us for a ride, but he's going.
I
Duke.
love how Monty and I simultaneously. No way.
Guys, we ride. You know what? I believe in you, Pitt. I believe in you, but you've broken my heart too many times. It fooled me once, shame on me. Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, I don't know what the fool me 3 times is, but it probably means lock them up. So we're just not going to let the fool me 3 times happen.
Yeah, Micah's got to be feeling really bitter. He hadn't had a great season in Pick'em, and then he finally has the dream weekend and can't quite get it done with Pitt letting him down at the end. So it's not a surprise.
I overthought it, Monty, because Nick was on that show when I said I'm going Georgia Tech, and then I said that I even said to myself, I can't ride that high after watching them just struggle with Presbyterian, and I got to ride with my Pitt boys. And Nick's like, I could tell Nick was kind of like, Micah, don't overthink it. And I did. And
I'm glad you did, because otherwise you and I would have had the exact same picks. So it's nice for the variety's sake, and it made it kind of fun on Sunday that one of us would go 7-0, but not both of us, which was kind of cool. Yeah, diving into I'm taking Duke as well. I forgot. I almost didn't pick, but I'm taking Duke as well. I have a feeling that's going to be a unanimous.
Quick question, because I'm curious. Does Sokol move to Friday to try to combat Santucci, do you think? Or do they stick with Andrade and then see if it's Kyle Johnson or whoever, I guess, Duke wants to throw out there for Saturday against? Because I think if Duke trots out a Kyle Johnson or, kind of makes it more of these long relief or, opener type Tampa Bay Ray type things, I think Pitt might actually have the advantage in the pitching department on Saturday, the way Sokol has looked the last couple weekends.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's hard to say, because I would have thought they would have made the move before now, but Andrade has still had some pretty. The problem is every once in a while he just has a really good start and then throws you off.
I'm very afraid that what I saw that Friday night against Virginia might happen again against Duke this weekend for him.
Yeah, it could. It very well could. It's yeah. And that taxes the bullpen pretty early. But yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Notre Dame at North Carolina. We'll start with Micah. Are you going with the Irish on the road in Chapel Hill?
I actually don't have a hat. I didn't buy a North Carolina one when I was there. So, but no, I'm going North Carolina.
He's wearing a Duke hat as he goes North Carolina, folks.
Actually, hold on. Let me make myself even more sick. Let's just put on the rival school for me and just put that one on. I'm just kidding.
There you go. Well, Ben Miller, the third baseman for Duke, grew up a diehard Carolina fan. He is
there we go,
tearing it up. So you're not alone in no. So you're going Carolina, obviously. You think it's a sweep at home?
Yeah.
I might be there. I don't know if I had any other plans to go to the Bosch this season. And Mike, as we've discussed, it's a top 2-3 stadium in the conference, if not number 1. So I feel like I have to get out there this season, with it being, 2.5 hours away. So I'm going Carolina as well. But Nick, what about you?
I will ride with the Heels as well. They're playing really well. The bats are on fire. The pitching seems to be really good. Don't be surprised if Notre Dame takes one and one of these games is a shootout, because we know this Notre Dame lineup can hit, but they just can't pitch. And I think they have one of the worst staffs in the ACC, and they're going up against probably one or two of the hottest lineups in the conference. So give me UNC.
North Carolina's red hot. They didn't stop hitting much in that Virginia series outside of that the 2 home runs by Honeycutt. But even then, you hit 2 home runs in the game. But yeah, I'm going Carolina. You're going Carolina. We're all going Carolina. Moving along to a series that our good friend Micah will be at, as he announced earlier in the show. The number 9 Virginia Cavaliers heading to his Louisville Cardinals. Micah.
Can I go last?
Micah can go last. Yep. Nick.
I want to hear you guys, Monty, especially you, because you've obviously had a lot of eyes on Virginia over the year or over the last couple of weeks.
I'm not going to provide much insight because I can't figure them out, but I will do my best. But Nick, we'll start with you.
This one's really tough.
Is the question, guys? Is this the toughest series to pick this weekend? Is it just Micah's bias of 2 teams he loves kicking in, or is this actually the toughest thing to pick?
No, genuinely, this is the toughest matchup this week to pick.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see.
I think Louisville's hot right now, but how much can you take away for Louisville beating NC State when they didn't have 2 of their starters in the rotation, So it seems like the Louisville win for Virginia Tech.
Technically, Virginia doesn't have 2 of their opening day starters either, technically, but
yeah.
Hodges and O'Connor, God bouts in a boot, apparently.
This is tough. I'm going to ride with Virginia, I think. I really want to pick Louisville, but I have to see Louisville play a healthy squad, and Virginia is healthy. Their bats are really, really good. I'm going to ride Virginia 2 out of 3 on this.
We just explained why they're not healthy, Nick. No,
true.
Well, no. So again, Louisville, the way they played against NC State has me a little nervous, and Virginia's inconsistency. But I still think I'm going to go with Virginia. I expect to see Evan Blanco against Gongora Friday. Gongora is going to be facing an insane lineup again. It'll be interesting to see how he handles that. Obviously, Evan Webster and probably Carson Liggett the rest of the weekend. So it'll be really interesting. And I think I like Virginia 2 out of 3, but I would not be shocked if Louisville wins this series. And, steals a couple of games at home. But right now I'm just feeling the Virginia offense is just so good. And I'm not sold on the Louisville bullpen. Micah, It is now your turn.
Go Who's. I think, Monty, I think the last statement you made is why I'm taking Virginia. Virginia this weekend against North Carolina did not go away. The bats never stopped grinding. Even late in that game when it was kind of out of hand on Sunday, threatening that UNC bullpen.
Really good UNC.
I'm sorry, bullpen. Nick. I don't want to give NC State a stray right here, but the lineup just could not get out of its own way when it had Louisville's bullpen on the ropes. I think this Virginia lineup will make Louisville pay if that situation arises. And so I think Virginia does take 2 or 3. And I also think, Monty, I said it last week. Obviously, you were not, unfortunately, on the show with us. But when we were picking the Virginia-North Carolina series, I said, North Carolina swept Wake. I don't know if they can come in and beat a good Virginia team after that momentum. I don't think they can do it again, kind of thing.
I did.
Can Louisville really do it again? I mean, I will say, Monty, this will be the one series that if Virginia does lose, I will not be that devastated about, because it means that my Louisville Cardinals are probably looking at an NCAA tournament spot again, which will make me very happy. But at the same time, I will say I am a little concerned. I think there's a chance the starting pitching is better for Louisville than Virginia overall. I like I kind of want, Monty, I want to fight back on you. I want Blanco to go against Webster on Saturday. I don't want him to go against Gongora. I think Gongora right now is proven to be a better starter than Blanco has consistently. And I kind of like the idea of giving Blanco Webster But
well, here's the thing though. Blanco doesn't have to be as good as the Friday starter.
That's true.
You just have to give him innings and keep him within shouting distance because the lineup will grind it out. So that's the thing is I'm not arguing that Blanco should be moved to Friday because he's an elite Friday night starter. It's somebody that'll give you 5 innings and even if he gives up 3 runs,
keep him within a run or 2 and you'll be okay. Yeah, that's
keep him within 6 runs or 2.
Fair enough.
So I mean, as UNC found out Friday night when Cullen McKay, I guess. No, yeah. By the way, what Micah said about UNC's bullpen and what UVA did to them, that UNC's bullpen that UVA was getting against was their best guys, and Mathis and Poston and Percival and Pence. I mean, those guys have been lights out for North Carolina all year, and Virginia got to them. They didn't win those games they didn't win the game on Sunday, but they got to them on Friday and Saturday and really made them pay. So it's going to be interesting to see with that Louisville bullpen. But yeah, Sebastian Gongora is must-see television right now. ACC co-pitcher of the week. Evan Webster's been outstanding, really underrated. And then if Carson Liggett can be the guy that Micah and I believe even Nick believed he could be before the season, it could be a very interesting series. So moving along to the battle of the tech schools, it'll be the Hokies traveling down to Atlanta to that beautiful backdrop in Atlanta for the Yellow Jackets. We're going to start with Micah, Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech?
I made the mistake with Georgia Tech last week of saying I'm just going to pick the home team because I'm picking the home team. I'm not doing it. I got to remind myself Virginia Tech is good. This is not the only time I'll probably ever put this hat on, but it's only going to be on for about 30 seconds, and then it's coming right back off. But I'm picking Virginia Tech because I don't want to overthink it, because I do think that this team is going to bounce back.
For those of you listening on the podcast,
I am wearing a disgusting Virginia Tech hat.
He's wearing a Virginia Tech hat, and he has about 4 of them behind him as well. So, no, he just turned around and looked like somebody might have put some back there.
Yeah, I'm like, what? That's actually Scott Stadium right there in the backdrop.
So. Yeah. All right, Nick, what do you think?
Or actually, sorry, that is called Lane Stadium North to a lot of Virginia Tech fans. So technically, you could just say, But.
All right, enough, Nick. I wish Jake was here so I could yell at him.
Yeah, don't overthink this. Virginia Tech is flat out, I think, the better team. I love you, Georgia Tech. I love you, Georgia Tech fans. You guys are the best. But
I'm rooting for you.
Yeah.
Micah's rooting for you.
Georgia Tech hat is back on. I'm pointing at it. I'm rooting for you. I feel the buzz, baby. I feel it.
Their Virginia Tech's rotation, the way that they handled the Wake Forest lineup was honestly pretty good. Like they caught Wake catching fire this weekend, and it really wasn't all that bad for that rotation, and wasn't really all that bad for the relief pitchers, except maybe on Sunday. But we know that this Georgia Tech team, I don't know if their starters can outduel Virginia Tech starters, so I'm going to take Virginia Tech 2 out of 3.
Yeah, I'm going to take Virginia Tech as well. I think the offense for Virginia Tech gets back on track against the Georgia Tech pitching, and I think Virginia Tech's pitching rebounds as well. I like the Hokies potentially in a sweep this weekend. So, all right, last one of the weekend will be the NC State Wolfpack at number 2 Clemson. I'll start it off. I'm going Clemson. NC State's proven they are not good on the road, and they're going to be running into a really, really good Clemson team, the class of the ACC. Micah, let's kick it over to you. You're already wearing the Clemson hat.
This is my sweeping motion. NC State's there's gonna be some people in Raleigh, Nick, I think a little antsy after this weekend. If you can't drive in runs in situations against this Louisville bullpen, it's hard to believe that you're going to do it against a pretty solid Clemson group. And if Clemson can even 90% replicate what they did this weekend, starting wise, between Marshall and Kanak and all that, I think you're sitting pretty, or Clemson would be sitting pretty, excuse me.
Yeah, and by the way, I don't think Nick has gone against NC State in Pick'em or Wake Forest in Pick'em this
That's
season.
true. Will
Um,
Nick finally pull the trigger?
Yep, he still has not gone against Wake Forest, but is he going to go against his NC State Wolfpack? Let's hear, Nick. Who are you picking?
Yeah, I'm pulling the trigger. I'm going with the Tigers.
Nick sounds so dead inside as he said that.
I'm very, very dead.
I will say, Nick, I want to issue a formal apology on the podcast. Monty, last week I said one of the things is going to have to happen. I picked Louisville to win the series. I said, but okay, it's okay because one of your teams will probably win a national championship, and none of his teams won a single game all weekend. So I'm sorry, Nick. This is my fault. I gave Nick a hard time. I said NC State fans have never had to struggle in their lives. Their teams are all winning. They're top 20 in baseball. They're in the Final Four in women's basketball. And then they were reminded that they're NC State fans and they're required to live in purgatory for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So
we get an ounce of glory and then we get a ton of just misery. So, yeah. The guy, if State's going to have any chance, they got to I don't know what's going on with the rotation right now. I don't know if Logan's better. I don't know why Sam got this rest that he needed. I know Sam has been throwing a lot of pitches. Like he's been hitting like the 110s in his pitch count in the last two starts, I believe. So maybe it was needed rest, but just bad timing to get swept by Louisville when you're going into Clemson and your guys are just not ready, like just not healthy. Clemson can hit the ball. They can pitch well. They're the class of the ACC, and State is they're juggling with their season right now. It seems like this has been the trend for the last 3 years. Just they're on the bubble right now to me. Like right now, the season ended. I think they're in. But right now, a sweep, that's not going to be good when you still have to go to Florida State, when you still have North Carolina on the schedule, when towards the end of the season, Wake could be back at the top and be top 10 or top 5 and be the class of the ACC once again, because they still got to play Clemson. Like this Wake team could beat Clemson on the road. You never know with how things are going right now in Winston. So State's got a treacherous ride. And it was a bad time to get swept on the road last week. So I'm going with Clemson on this.
Yep. Sounds like a lot of us are going in the same direction. You chose Miami. Mike and I went Florida State. We all chose Wake Forest. We all chose Duke. We all chose Carolina. We all chose Virginia. We all chose Virginia Tech, and we all chose Clemson. So the only place where we even though we said Virginia at Louisville was the toughest one, we all ultimately went the same way. So Miami, you're lone.
Canes, come on, help your boy out. Let's go.
I'm making a bold prediction, Monty. Nick's going to make his first ever change on his picks on Wednesday afternoon when he realizes, what am I doing when Miami probably drops another midweek and is now 2 games under 500 heading to Tallahassee?
I'm not gonna lie. I thought about do I switch?
There's my bold prediction, Monty.
Do I DM Monty and be like, hey, I don't usually do this, but
hey, you have the right to do it. You just never do it.
Remember, it's all about the you, man. It's all about the you.
I gotta be different.
If it was all about the you, it'd be on the hat. There we go. Thank you.
No, I will roll with Miami to hopefully get the winning record against you guys.
So that's going to wrap up our show here now. On Thursday, we're going to have a special show. We've teased it a little bit during this. The ACC content team and several members of the national group of our CBC writers are voting in an ACC All-Star selection. So we have 2 All-Star teams split up by division. We'll have the ACC Atlantic All-Star team and the ACC Coastal All-Star team. On Thursday around at 8:00, we're going to release. We're going to do a show and reveal the members. The only people who are going to know the results ahead of time is myself. So that I can get honest reactions. I know Jake's going to be with us. Micah said he'd be with us. Nick, you're welcome to join us. I'm sure you didn't necessarily see the message when it was in the group chat, but I basically was open to everyone who wanted to join, and we'll get honest reactions and talk our votes through, and who got snubbed, because there will be some snubs, I imagine. Certain positions are going to be very difficult. Nick has already tried to figure that out when he was going to do his voting. Some positions are a lot harder to figure out. I don't know if Mike has had a chance to look, but there's a lot of
I just
good.
want to confirm, Monty, because I'm assuming this is correct. We are going, or the premise of this, right, is to go based off of the entire season, correct?
Yep, and what I recommended,
early season stuff. I mean, again, you can use tiebreakers or whatever for the ACC. Yep. Like if it comes down to Nick Kurtz and pick a first baseman in the Atlantic, right?
Jacob Hinderleiter.
There you go, perfect. And you want to go, well, Nick Kurtz has maybe more ACC home runs, so I'm gonna go that. Fine, but like, I just wanted to make sure. I thought that was kind of the premise, because obviously I'm assuming we'll do an end of the season 1-2 to where if Nick Kurtz continues his hot streak, then maybe he becomes the end of season all-star. But okay, that's what I figured. Or not all-star, but all conference or whatever we decided.
Yeah, we'd probably do an all conference one, whereas this would be as if they were playing an all-star game. So you'll have 2 first basemen, but then
I should just pick my favorite looking, like the best, most swaggy players, right? Because that's what all-star games normally are nowadays. It's just who's got the most drip, because it's fan vote.
Micah, do you not want to vote?
I do want to vote.
I
want to vote for the entire Pitt and Notre Dame starting lineup in rotation, and I want to send them to the All-Star game. And let's say, where's this All-Star game going to be played, Monty?
Well, that's a good question, Micah. As our stadium guy, I think I'm going to leave that up to you.
I'm thinking we should play at the best ballpark I've stepped foot in so far this season, which is Jack Coombs Field. I mean, there's no better play.
Can we not do this seriously?
Okay, if you're telling me to pick the best ballpark in the ACC to play this at, we got to play it with the beautiful skyline of Atlanta, home of one of the best Major League Baseball. You got to go to Atlanta, right? You have to. We're doing it that way. But
yep. So tune in Thursday for our All-Star show. We'll have unveiling that, and obviously at the end of the year, just like every other publication, we'll have our all-conference first and second teams and all freshman teams like that. But this will be a fun little mid-season one, as if they are playing it with each other. We'll talk through who gets the starting, if we're the manager, who gets the starting nod of the starting pitchers that are revealed, and maybe even talk through what our lineup would look like in this fake all-star game. So tune in for that. Any closing thoughts, Nick?
Shout out to my basketball team, NC State Wolfpack. What a hell of a run it was. That was so much fun. I've had a lot of teams like make championships and stuff and just be upset and mad when they lose, but this was the first time where I was just like, you know what? I'm just sad that the ride is over, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it blew a lot of momentum back into the state basketball program. I'm only saying this because of the ACC podcast for me and Micah, just to talk towards the end of basketball season. But it was fun. It was awesome. What a ride. 9 wins in a row, ACC champs, Final Four run. Shout out to the women's team too. That was a great Final Four run as well. The future is bright for NC State basketball, and I'm very excited for next season. I'm excited where this program's going to go. Awesome ride. Totally so much fun. Just couldn't believe it. But other than that, I'm not going anywhere this weekend. I'll catch a Dash game, so I'll try to catch former Wake Forest pitcher Eric Adler sometime this weekend. The Dash have a series against the Grasshoppers, so I might be going to that Friday night. So that's all the baseball I'm going to.
That'll be fun. All right, Micah, any final thoughts?
If you like college baseball, check out the Southern Conference. 4 teams in the RPI Top 100 right now, including everyone's favorite mid-major team, the East Tennessee State University Buccaneers. That's all I've got.
Awesome. That'll do it for us. We'll be back Thursday for our All-Star show, and then we'll be doing our podcast next week, either Monday or Tuesday. Hopefully Monday, as we did today, but you never know. But thanks for listening in. We'll see you next time.